Odysseus has spent years battered by the open sea and hunted by monsters. In this depiction, he is bound to the mast, a survivor of physical trials that have already claimed many of his men. Compared to the horrors of Scylla and Charybdis, the island of Thrinacia looks deceptively peaceful. These ancient stone ruins and dry grasses suggest a place of rest, green and devoid of immediate threats. But these meadows are a trap. They are the grazing ground for the immortal cattle of the sun god Helios. As this bronze face with its spiked crown suggests, the god sees everything from the sky, and his herds are sacred. Survival on Thrinacia depends on suppressing primal urges. Odysseus has entered a psychological landscape where discipline is the only weapon that matters. The stakes are absolute. Both the prophet Tiresias and the sorceress Circe warned Odysseus that touching even one animal would guarantee the total destruction of his crew. To prevent this catastrophe, Odysseus forces his exhausted men to swear a solemn oath. They must agree to eat only the provisions they brought with them and leave the sacred herds untouched. This oath creates a fragile micro-civilization on the beach. For a time, the crew was bound together by a verbal social contract, prioritizing the safety of the group over their own hunger. Then the weather turns. A relentless south wind traps the ship on the island for a full month, and their supplies eventually run dry. As genuine starvation sets in, the social contract begins to fray. The men are reduced to scavenging the shoreline for birds and fish, their bodies weakening, while the fat, forbidden cattle graze just a few steps away. Individual responsibility is easy to maintain in times of plenty. The true test of a society is whether its rules can hold when the basic requirements for survival disappear. The breaking point arrives when Odysseus goes inland to pray and falls into a deep sleep. Without their leader, the starving crew is left to face their desperation alone. Eurylochus steps into the vacuum with a mutinous logic. He tells the men that while every death is hateful, dying slowly of hunger is the most miserable fate a human can endure. The men convince themselves they can pay for their crime later. They rationalize the slaughter by promising to build a magnificent temple to Helios once they reach the safety of Ithaca. They kill the immortal tattle, but the sacrifice is a perversion of ritual. Lacking barley and wine, they use oak leaves and water, a hollow gesture that fails to mask their theft. This act marks the total collapse of individual responsibility. When survival is threatened, the desperate will rationalize any violation of the law to satisfy their immediate needs. Odysseus wakes to the smell of roasting meat and realizes instantly that his men have crossed a fatal boundary. The gods respond with a visceral horror. The hides stripped from the cattle begin to move on their own, crawling across the ground as if the animals were still alive. On the spits, the roasting meat begins to bellow. A sound like the lowing of living cattle rises from the coals, a terrifying sign that the immortal has been profaned. Despite these omens of death, the men continue to feast. For 6 consecutive days, their hunger overpowers their dread. Once the social contract is broken, society enters a kind of madness. The crew willfully ignores the supernatural warnings of their own impending doom for one last week of indulgence. Helios is consumed by fury. He delivers an ultimatum to Zeus. If the mortals are not punished for consuming his immortal herd, he will take the sun to the underworld and shine only for the dead. This diagram shows the established cosmic hierarchy. Zeus sits at the top on Mount Olympus, mortals live on the Earth's surface, and the dark underworld lies beneath. Helios threatens to invert reality, illuminating the dead while plunging the world of the living into total darkness. The crew's lack of discipline has destabilized the foundational order of the entire universe, demanding an ultimate cosmic correction. This bronze statue captures Zeus as the supreme judge. He is the authority who must utilize ultimate force to prevent reality from unraveling. His weapon of order is forged deep within this volcanic mountain. The Cyclopes created these lightning bolts to enforce the divide between mortal and divine. On the 7th day, the wind dies down. The crew sets sail, believing they have escaped the consequences of their actions. The moment they lose sight of land, the sky turns black. Zeus unleashes his thunderbolt directly at the vessel, striking it with the full weight of cosmic law. The ship is shattered to pieces. One by one, the men are thrown into the waves and drowned, fulfilling the prophecies to the letter. Odysseus is the sole survivor. He is spared because he alone upheld his oath and resisted the primal urge that destroyed his community. The myth serves as a timeless warning. When individuals abandon their responsibility to the group for the sake of selfish survival, they invite the destruction of the entire community.